All right, thank you guys so much for joining. Good housekeeping, okay? Make sure that if you're driving, you are at the gym, you are eating, whatever you're doing, please stop your camera. I don't want to see that, and I don't think anybody else does. So we're good on that aspect, right? Um, what I want to do is I want to introduce Lauren. Lauren's amazing. I've known Lauren for several years. She jumped in my coaching right away. Um, really kind of embraced it, and watching her grow over the last years has been really amazing. We've come to become pretty good friends. I would say we have fun together and we have business together. But I met Lauren in Vegas and we had a great conversation, and we just kind of talked about the mentality of where everybody's at in their business right now. And I'm going to let Lauren introduce her, and then I'm going to obviously brag about her this entire time about where it is, because I think people just get too complacent. They get too lazy. They're not willing to take risks of where it is. So Lauren, why don't you just tell everybody just a little bit about yourself, a little background, because now you're kind of all over everywhere. So just kind of tell everybody where you're at, and then I'll dive in some questions on that.
Okay. Hi, guys. My name is Lauren House. I am at Russ Lyon Sotheby's International Realty in Scottsdale, Arizona, and then I'm at Super Luxury Group in Miami, Florida. I also have a California license. That one is currently inactive, but I still get quite a few inquiries a year that has made me wonder, should I just reactivate that? But I feel like three markets is probably a little much. So I'm just really heavy on referral buddies. And the conversation that John and I had was just like, if you were in business before 2020, 2021, 2022, you had really good systems in place, at least I did. And then that hit and you just became so exhausted because you didn't really have to work that hard. You had to work truly 15 times as hard to get one person under contract, which was a different type of exhaustion. And you started to really feel for them. But I know I personally lost all the things that John says. Like, I didn't text my 5 people. I stopped calling people. I certainly was not writing handwritten notes. Like, you just didn't have time at the end of the day to go back to the basics because you were in such a rat race on this hamster wheel of trying to get everyone under contract. So that has bred a little bit of laziness, a little bit of complacency. And now it's just easy to like, okay, it's going to pick back up. Like, no, it's not. You have to fucking work for it now. It's not that easy anymore. So you have to go back to all of your basics. And that's where this conversation started with John. Oh, we have a visitor.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's okay. I think that's very true for most everybody. Life happens, right? People might be going through a struggle, might be going through family, whatever it is, and I get it. I've been through that all, but I think real estate, we're in a weird world with it right now because everybody's a guru, right? Everybody's like, oh, I'm the video the king, I'm the whatever it is, or I'm the listing king or whatever it is. And I pull their numbers and they haven't done shit, right? So there's too much fluff, right?
Yeah.
And I think if you listen to Lauren, like I always say, just keep it simple, right? And so you recognizing that, where I think a lot of people don't recognize that. And obviously your numbers showed or whatever it is, you're saying, hey, it wasn't as busy. How hard was that on your ego? How hard was it to just go back to the basics and create that routine again of posting content on different platforms? And there's your cat Fluffy that I love. But just
Sorry. He
because
loved the camera for some reason.
but you do have that balance where I think a lot of people struggle with. They're like, dude, where do I start? How do I just, and I always say just start with one thing. But if you were to tell somebody right now in this Zoom and you said, what was the one thing that made you start to just slow down and go back to the basic and say, okay, this is how I built my business. Why did I go away from this? And obviously it was the good times, but how did you reset your brain to get back to just square one?
So I'm a really big believer that when you do the right thing, you get rewarded. And I'm a believer in that because it happens to me frequently. I'm super spiritual. So I'm very into the signs. And I took all of last summer off because I was absolutely exhausted and I had made enough money that I felt comfortable enough to just not work. I did the bare minimum. I still saw people and like, I'm super social and love to go out and drink. So like, I still would do dinners and stuff and stay in touch with people, but it was not like to the degree that it was, 2008 to 2020, we'll say. And so, in December of last year when so I took off pretty much May to November, and my birthday's in December, and I was like, I'm going to go party hard one last weekend. And then it's like zero plans. And I cut out every single social plan except for Christmas. And I think I put like $8 million under contract by January, like the middle of January. So like it took 4 to 6 weeks to like harvest. And then I saw the result, and it was like, okay, I've missed this. Even though I wanted the break, I still missed being fulfilled and helping people and like having something to get up and do every day. Like, what was I doing for those months? I did go travel and I fucked around and whatever. But like when you decide to cut out the distractions, that's when you can be 100% into your business, and you start realizing these are the things that I need to do. And it's just those little things, you know, you reach out to someone you haven't talked to in months, or you like, I've been writing my notes again, and the amount of people who like send a text and like, that was so awesome to get that in the mail. It's rewarding. And then it's reopens the door without that awkward, like, hey, I know I haven't talked to you in a while, but like, I just wanted to see if you need anything. It's a softer way of the introduction.
You know, let's talk about that. So you reintroduce yourself, and I think it's really funny because all these realtors are putting out the exact same content. Like they're just sitting in a chair, they're talking their stuff. You do funny shit, and then you have balance that's different from Facebook to Instagram, which you've done very well. But I think where everybody's just doing it, they're like, oh, this person had success because they taught a class and they're talking their numbers. Versus, I think you stay true to your authentic self. And I think a lot of people struggle with being their authentic self because they're afraid to lose a client. They're afraid to do whatever. Obviously, people know me. I stay to my fucking self. I could care less, right? But I think most people do struggle. How, and I think this is very important because people are getting so much information. And then I see people getting, you know, oh, go do this and go do that. And it's like, well, show me your numbers that it actually works, right? So you're saying you went back to the basics. You started touching your clients. You started being consistent for 6 weeks because you've been in it a long time. But it wasn't where back in the day you could turn it on in a week. It took 6 times the amount of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you put 8 million into escrow. All right, guys, focus with what she's selling on the flow, okay? But she stopped all distractions. And I think everybody's got the oh squirrel, you know, type syndrome. So I wrote this down this morning when I was at the gym, and I said, Lauren, how hard or how did you learn to say no to people, or no to going out, or no to, because I don't hang out with just anybody anymore. Right. It's just not my vibe anymore. Like I could give a shit less. I'm just going to hang out. Right. So tell people like what is about in your circle. How do you tell people no? How do you get to where you're hiring the right people on your team? Like focus on, tell a little bit about that. Cause I think it's kind of flows with everything else that you're doing.
Okay. So this, I was in 2015, I had just moved back here from here being Arizona, from Los Angeles. And this is like not my proudest moment, but I was so hungover. I had just been on a bender. It was like a Tuesday. I was an assistant for somebody in my office at Sotheby's, and I wrote a letter to myself that day. And I actually just stumbled upon it not too long ago. And it was saying how I am so tired of being like this party girl, of people think I'm doing a great job, but I know deep down I'm not doing a great job. And I think there were some drugs involved. So there's probably a little depression on that day as well. And I was just a total train wreck. And this note to myself said, I am cutting out all distractions. I do not want to sit. Like my biggest pet peeve is to sit and text somebody all day. If you want to talk to me, call me. Let's get it done in 5 minutes. I don't need to drag it out over the day. Obviously, if a client wants to only text, that's a different story. And it frustrates me, but it just is what it is. And that was this day in 2015 that I just said, I can't live like this anymore. So then it started, you know, when we met and you started like drink a gallon of water a day and wake up early. Like once I found the value in waking up early and having those 3 hours before the world starts at 7 a.m., because I wake up at between 4 and 5, that was a game changer because now the distraction.
Pause you right there, guys. Did you listen to what she said? She's talking about all these bad habits that she had. Okay, and I get the water. True serum hurts. Would you guys agree? You guys should all write yourself a letter and send it to yourself in the mail. If that's one thing you could get out of this, write yourself a letter, send it to yourself in the mail about your fucking bullshit. I don't care if you have kids, I don't care if you're going through whatever it is, and frame it and put it in your office and read that bitch every day. Go ahead.
And now I lost my train of thought.
Gallon of water, waking up early 2 hours prior.
Yeah. So now, long story short, my mornings are more important and hold such a high value that I don't want to go out at night anymore. Like, you want to go to dinner with me? I tell you, I have to be out of the house at 7 o'clock. And if you want me to stay fun and positive, then we need to be like ending dinner at 8 o'clock, because when you wake up between 4 and 5 in the morning, your bedtime is 8:30 at night if you want a full night of sleep. And sleep for me is a non-negotiable. Of course, I still have my nights where I go out and I sleep by the toilet or whatever. Those are very few and far between now. I'm a super controlled drunk.
I love this vulnerability, because we're all there. We all do stupid shit sometimes. And that's fine.
And you have to drink in this business. It's like impossible not to. I don't know how people don't. And so it has just become like, I was telling my boyfriend the other day, he's like, I am so sad. Like, I'm going to be 39 in a couple months. And I'm like, I feel like my party side is just gone. And I love that girl. And that's how I make connections. Like, I went to the Open and I put a house under contract within a month because I ran into a friend at the Open. So like, that's how my business, that's how my business is done. My business is social and it all revolves around drinking, because that's what I'm good at. I'm not good at sitting at home and like researching how many times this house sold and every price it sold at. Like, I don't really care. I'll look at it when somebody needs to know. So figuring out your strengths and your weaknesses are also a huge part of this. And it's being honest with yourself to understand what your strengths and weaknesses are.
How did you understand what your strengths and weaknesses are? Because I think a lot of people are around the wrong people that enable them to not pull out their strengths and weaknesses. And I think when you made a change by writing the letter, so I think it's important. I'm not trying to cut, but these are very important factors. And that's why I had you on this call, because you have a great balance where you've gone fun. But when we met, you were like, you came to me and you're like, dude, I've had a crazy life. I want to change. I'm like, dude, just jump to coaching and focus. And this is kind of what I do. And you're like, great. And it's done well for you, obviously, over the last 8 years, 7, 8 years that we've known each other. But I think that's the focus, is going, how do you get out of that comfort zone to where you keep being around these people that telling you it's going to be okay?
It goes back to what you said about how you're super picky about who you hang out with. And when you're living in your daily life, you don't notice it. But with this expansion to Miami that I've been doing over the last year, the amount of people who reach out, who I really have no foundation with, and I literally, the first words of their text are, I miss you. When are you coming home? I'm sorry. I'm trying to fly right now. And if you're not going to let me fly, then you're not going to be a part of my life. Like, there just is, I vent to my girlfriends all the time. And I hate to say, they're like, I don't understand why that pisses you off so much. And I'm like, because you want me to stay in Arizona. I don't want to stay in Arizona. I have more bigger things that I want to do. Like, my goal is to sell double-digit houses now. And instead of, we didn't for most of my career in Arizona, we didn't have a lot of double-digit houses. That was like insane and not heard of. We do now. But that's only over the last 2 to 3 years. And now my vision is somewhere else. And I'm certainly keeping my baby, because Arizona is my baby.
Right.
But those are still just the people that try to, like, I call them anchors. Like, they don't want, like, they don't want you to do something that maybe they feel uncomfortable with. How do you get rid of them? It's like a, oh my God, yeah, I'll let you know. Right. Like, and that's so hard for me, because it goes against every grain in my body. Like, I'm such a follow-upper. If I want to see you, I'll set a date with you. Like, that's how I operate. So to just leave it out in the air, or I make plans with the people who I know are going to flake, and I just count on that still being a blank space in my calendar.
It's not the worst thing in the world. So let me ask you a question though. We talked about balancing life. We talked about saying no. You obviously have to have a team that helps you when you're not here. And I've met some of your team and they're amazing. Okay. I think a lot of people struggle with hiring people or getting under the right, say, brokerage or the right team or the right people just in general. Because number one, they've never held themselves accountable.
Right.
Okay. So I think that's a big thing where we all make the mistake. How did you determine who's going to be on your team and who's not going to make the team? I always say, make them write out their job description. No one's going to be perfect, right? And I think when we hire, we just think they're just going to do everything perfect, right? But you have to understand, look, they're paying it, whatever you're going to pay them, just know that's what you're getting from. So it's not going to be your standard, but it's going to be 20% of your standard, like the book that I talked about, Who Not How. How do you determine who? Yeah, it's one of my favorite books ever to be in business is Who Not How. But
yeah, that was an eye opener, by the way. Everybody should read it.
I preach that for forever, and it'll teach you to run a better business for sure. I know Diane in Florida read it, and she was like, we had a complete different one-on-one call. She was like, holy shit. But how did you determine, because in Who Not How, they're your how to pick up pieces that you're not necessarily wanting to do. But I think people always say the terminology of, oh, they work for me or I'm their employer. And I don't agree with that. I think that we're a team and we work together, because you're doing things that I don't want to do. Sure, I might be paying you, but at the end of the day, you're doing things that I don't want to do. Just like you're helping with buyers, sellers, or what title does or mortgage. Like, how did you determine to pick these people to be a part of your tribe in a sense?
Dude, this is like, I could talk for 2 hours about this. I had my office manager knew, first of all, I would say the very first piece of building a team is like knowing that you deserve it. Like my biggest hurdle was, I'm like Lauren House. Why do I need an assistant? What? Like, I don't sell $100 million a year. Why do I need an assistant? But I was so exhausted and I couldn't get to it. And so many people were falling through the cracks. I needed help. So I told my manager I was needing help, and my mom randomly met somebody at the dog park who used to be a flipper. He wanted to get into sales. However, he was going through a divorce at the same time that we started working together. And he was just like 2 or 3 years older than me. Ultimately, I said to him, listen, I don't think that this relationship is working because I think you think I'm your second ex-wife and you don't like taking direction from me. And it dawned on him that ultimately was what the issue was. So I let him go. The second lady was in her 50s, had been in real estate for a year, maybe done two, couldn't get anything under contract. Well, when you work with someone, kind of like when you live with someone, you really get to know them. She was just a total flake. I mean, very nice, but just total flake, and did not, she disappeared for 5 days. And I was like, okay, I'm just being handed people and I'm just taking them. This isn't working for me. So I went on Indeed.com, which is a little expensive. You have to be prepared for spending at least $1,000, which at the time, it's not that I couldn't afford it. I just mentally didn't know that's what it was going to cost, because every person who submits an application to you, you get charged for. And it's not like $10, it's like $48 a freaking app. It's so expensive. Yeah. So I sat for, which I felt like I was wasting my time, but I sat for 2 days at the same coffee shop and just had people back to back. I got to see who showed up late, who showed up early, what kind of car they drove. Did they smell like cigarettes? Were they disheveled? Did they have excuses? And I mean, immediately it was all no's except for the guy that I ultimately hired. And I went and had a second interview with him, and I broke. I was like, I'm just having a second interview with you because I think I'm supposed to do this, but I don't really know what to ask you. And we totally got along. It took a long time. The who not how was very helpful, and like, it's okay to learn to delegate, but you also have to trust. And my only rule for him, which is a very expansive rule, is you have to treat this business like it's yours. And that means you have to be available when I need you available. And I try to respect, I don't text him super early or super late, but when I need him, I need him, and he knows, like, if he has to leave to do something, he does. Like, it just, he's very much a part of who I am. It's not a huge friendship. We're friendly, obviously, and we talk every day, but that's been hard for me because I'm usually such a friend. And then the other girl I hired, I call her my mini me. She is like such a partier, but like super on track. But she also is 23. Like, I was 23. I used to take appointments at lunch and like be out till 3 a.m. Like, oh yeah, I just worked all day, like bonding.
Every realtor. That's still every realtor. It doesn't matter what the age is. They still do dumb shit. Let me pause right there though, because guys, you got to pick this up what she's saying. I think sometimes we miss some of these key points during a conversation because there's a lot. She told the guy, you got to run the business like it's your business. And if you listen to where she's flowing from her timeline, from where she started, she's obviously tracked her numbers, known her critical points of what gets her volume, gets her business going. I personally think that most realtors don't know how to run a business because they can't pivot when something happens. They all just go into panic, right? And I think if you listen to her, guys, and this is for me coming from, I understand it because that's what I do, but listen to the conversations about how many times she's telling you she's pivoted her business to keep it afloat because she said systems in place, but she's tracked to know what brings it back. And that's why I talk about tracking is so important. Not knowing your numbers, not knowing how to pivot, but she's ran a business. And would you agree that most realtors are not taught to run a business? They're just taught to put videos and content. And then guys, you know me, I'm like, track your shit and you'll know what to do. So talk about that. You elaborate with your team. Obviously, you know your numbers. How important is it to you to know to run a business, which I think most realtors don't? A lot of them are married, right? A lot of them have another spouse that will help pick up the slack. So you get a lot of, 68% of all realtors are women. When I see a lot of these ladies and they're doing a couple deals a year because they got a husband, and I'm like, work like your husband ain't there.
Yeah.
And then see if you can afford some shit. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not trying to be an asshole of anything, but I've been doing this shit by myself for forever. I didn't complain that I was a full-time single dad and all these things. And it's great with Colette. Colette's taking a lot of my stuff and she's doing great. But when you say run a business, what does that mean to you? Like if I say, Lauren, briefly summarize what you think it means to run a business and treat it like your business.
Because I'm so relationship driven, it is staying in touch with someone. And I really become close with people and it's easy to become close with people when you genuinely like them or get along with them, right? So that is from start to finish. Like I put a calendar reminder into my calendar. Oh man, this is again multi-layers. Okay, how do you run a business?
Good.
You can't go to work an open house. We'll start there. You can't work an open house and get a lead and contact them once or twice and say, okay, I didn't hear back from them. That's the end. Like it doesn't work like that. Like some people just don't respond. So I have a client that I just went to Portugal with, and I met her and her husband in 2017 at an open house. She doesn't have an iPhone, so I call her Green, like green, 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 green. 4 years, 2021, 4 years later, she finally called and was like, hey, Lauren, we're ready to buy in Arizona. We want to work with you. And I was like, oh my, like 1 month text check-ins paid off. And now we are super close. And she's like, you're my girl in Arizona forever. Like super close, went to Portugal with them. It's staying in touch with people before and staying in touch with people after. The amount of people who have called and said, I can't believe that you still talk to me once the deal has closed. I wish that I kept a list, and they feel so special. And for me, that's the business on top of anticipating the needs. And like, obviously it's experience. You have to know, if the appraisal comes in low, whatever you got for the Binzer's probably going to get thrown out and you're just going to get the low, right? Like you just have to be able to anticipate these things, but it's a start to finish, not only the transaction, but it's the relationship start to finish. You got to remember their birthday. You've got to still make an effort with them. And my biggest struggle is a lot of people only need you for the transaction. So I always joke, I'm like, okay, we're going to be married while we're working together. And then you're going to divorce me because you don't care about me anymore. And I lay it all out there, and they kind of laugh and they don't, they stop. And I do, like on the personal side, I find a little bit of sadness and a little bit of a void when the transaction ends and they stop responding, but then they reach out when like, hey, I need this. And I'm like, okay, do you want to get a drink? And they retract again, so it's just kind of.
I think it's funny. I want to throw this in because I know you're going to be funny in this, guys. and all of us, we've all stalked people. We've all gone through breakups. We've all acted like the person we dated was a narcissistic prick. But in real reality, like at some point, was it us or was it them? Like at some point, you just got to own your shit, right? Like I did a video the other day and I'm like, at some point, when your life is still not together and you've left this person for so many years, was it that person? Or was it just because you were lazy as fuck? Like, and you didn't know how to do your shit, right? So I always tell people this, look, there's three keys, right? You've got your past clients, your present clients, and your future clients. And I say, if you listen to her for 4 years, she texted this person and finally died. 4 years, guys. So consistency is obviously key. But with the stalking and where it is, and we all got these things that we say, I always say, dude, treat all your past clients and present clients like you're a crazy ex-girlfriend and you're trying to show them the value of what you truly are and that they can't live without you, because most people think that they can't, no one can live without them. Like I'll say it, I had a couple the other day, they sent me, and I don't care if they watch this fucking interview, they think they're going to make it in real estate. 100% they're not. I even told them that the other day. They're always going to try to find the next greatest thing of whatever it's going to be. You know, they jump from one team to the next, and then I'm coaching them. I'm like, and they're like, well, you know, we're trying to see this. And I said, dude, if my shit didn't work, I wouldn't be in business. If my shit didn't work, Lauren wouldn't have been able to put $8 million into real estate. I see people that quit my coaching lately and they have the weakest ass excuses. And most of it's because they don't have money. How the hell do you not have money? Money is an abundance thing. Talk about this, Lauren. Money isn't an abundance thing. Every day people are making money. Every day people are buying and selling real estate. And I think it's right here. And I think I see these people and they're like, oh man, it's not you, it's me. I can't get my shit together. You're never going to get your shit together. Because if you fucking quit when it gets hard, go get a job, is what I say. I told him, yeah, go get a 9 to 5. If you want immediate money, go work for somebody. In 2 weeks, you'll get a check. I bust my ass and I've never had a day off. Okay. And Lauren's known me for forever. Even when we were in Vegas and hanging out, how many people were walking up to me to say hi? And I just sat there.
Yep.
And the number one important lady at that event walked up to me too. And everybody was trying to figure it out. And this lady's brokered some of the biggest real estate mergers and acquisitions ever. And I was with people, and, you know, I met Lauren and we were hanging out, whatever. And it was fun with a great amount of people. But where do you think people's mentality when they struggle or I don't have money or whatever it is? I mean, obviously their behaviors left to where they went broke, right? And whatever it is. But what would you tell somebody today that's just going, God, I'm just going to quit on myself today? Because I always have my hat, winners never quit, believe in yourself. This is my slogan or wherever it is. I believe in everybody's got all the talent in the world, because sometimes I'm 2 crayons short of a full box. I tell people that all the time. We were laughing about it, right? I am not perfect. I am Lauren. I will go have fun. I will be a degenerate. That's why I am. But I work so damn. And my wife had a hard time understanding. She was just like, and then now she's like, holy shit, dude, you're like got 9 million things going on in your head, right? So how do you focus on the 9 million things that are going on in your head to dummy it down to 5? In a sense, right? Because you and I are very, very similar. We've talked about that for so many years. How do you get rid of all the squirrels in your head and start with just, okay, today I'm going to do this, tomorrow I'm going to do this. And I listen to you where like I track, guys, listen to her. She puts it on her calendar. She does all the crucial things. But I think this is very important for people right now, because this is the hardest real estate's ever been in years, you know, with rates and whatever it is. But it's really not hard if you double down and do the things like what you're doing. So talk about, like, why do you think your business is growing in this market where so many people are going backwards?
It still is all about staying in touch with everyone, right? Like you don't want them to forget about you. And there's a little bit of respect there with the summer. Like I'd probably call people a little bit less because everybody's checked out. Man,
I know that's a tough question, right? Because it's,
yeah, it is, because you don't really know what it is. Like I feel like I've messed up so many times over the years. Like a listing, I just read Jordan Cohen. Everybody should write this book down. Jordan Cohen's The Agent's Edge. Incredible. He literally tells you what he says in his listing presentation. And I just lost a listing presentation not too long ago. So I'm kicking myself for that, because I feel like I've gone in And I've been super formal, and people are like, why are you so formal? And then I go in and I'm casual, and they're like, why are you so casual? It's like, fucking A, dude. Like, I can't win, and you can't please everybody. So I've kind of just learned to ask, like, okay, how do you want me to show up? What kind of materials do you want me to bring? Oh, nothing. We just want to talk about this. Right. So it never split the difference. If you can get somebody to say no, they will always give you the reason why they're saying no. So I've learned to form all of my questions in business so that I can get a no, so that I can find out what it is that I need to know.
The no can turn into the yes.
Yes,
That's the
100. And it
object.
works. It works. It blows my mind. It works.
I do it all the
And
time. I get
so,
people to answer questions and eventually I get them to say yes. And they're like, how the hell did you do that? I'm like a woman, man. I'm just going to keep going until I get that word yes. I just know what questions to ask and where to pick it.
yes, 100%. Um, and I've taken this time, because it has been a slower summer, to like sit and reflect. I just switched my CRM, and that was very time consuming. I'm really just trying to like complete a task and put it back in the calendar. So I talk to you and I put in 1 month, I'm going to call you again. And now have HubSpot, which is more for like internal sales. It's not for real estate at all, but somebody told me about it, and I like it because it has the app. So like MailChimp, Razora, Constant Contact, like, at least from my knowledge, they don't have an app. And when you're out on the road, I'm not going to sit and like take notes on everybody. And I'm not going to remember at the end of the day to put it in. So if I can open the app and just put it in, it's $30 a month. And then I can create the new task while I'm in it. And
Task
then
management
pops up in a
system.
month and I don't have to think about it, you know?
What was the name of that again?
HubSpot, HUBSPOT.
So $30 thing, just like a task thing. I use Excel spreadsheets, but if you need the reminder, I do the Google calendars. I mean, that's a cheap app. That's just a reminder. Does it sync with your calendar?
It can. I haven't done that. And it can sync with your email, and you can get like a
And that's what
phone
I would do
number.
for 30
Yeah.
bucks. That's what I would do. If you guys want a reminding system, I mean, that's $30 for that. I mean,
I mean, I don't know if anybody knows Ninja in here. But they have this notebook that's $50, and I write down like all the people.
too close. There you
I
go.
write down all the people that I've talked to. And then when I get done with them, I put it into the next month so that I have the visual. Like, I'm constantly trying to remind myself. And honestly, when somebody says, what's your CRM? I'm like, my intuition. That's the truth. Like, I just like, my gut just says, oh, you need to call Rachel. Oh, you need to call this person. And I'm like, okay. So I pick up the phone and I'm like, that's so weird. I was just talking about you. I'm like, oh, okay. So that's my CRM, is my gut.
Here's the crazy thing though, guys. Look how much of my coaching she does to where she flows. She writes it down, then she puts it in there. And I always talk about write it down in your visual, put it in there, because now you've got that double step memory where I think a lot of people are like, oh, just put them in there. No, write your notes, write what you talked about, put them in there, make sure you get the calendar reminder, make sure you got the system. She said she switched an entire CRM, and obviously it's $30, and her overhead, you take out the assistants, I think her overhead is pretty low. And I think a lot of people think you need, and here's the misconception, guys. All these events that I see people going to and whatever it is, ask them what their overhead is to run their company. Because a lot of you guys aren't going to be able to afford that, and you don't start there and you're trying to build it out. And Lauren, if you could say, we mentioned Who Not How, you've mentioned the other book. How important do you think it is? Okay, so people there's a divide. Podcasts and books. I'm a book person. Okay. That's just me. I like to get a variation. Podcasts are cool. I've been on a lot of them, but they kind of, entrepreneurs kind of say the same sheen. Wake up early if I can do your thing, whatever it is. Make sure you wipe your ass when you go to the bathroom type stuff. It's just super simple things. But you did text me about how you wanted to talk about books. So let's talk about that. How important do you think it is? Because I think readers are leaders. I think you listen to it. I think you can learn a lot. Let's talk about that, because you did text me and say, John, I really want to talk about books. So talk about them. What books have really changed your life besides Who Not How and the other one?
So my goal is for you guys to leave here with something. To me, you're taking, we'll call it an hour of your time. This is like going to an open house. If you leave that open house without a lead, it was a goddamn waste of time. So I do not want to waste anybody's time here. And this is super important to me. I cannot stress reading enough. I don't care if you're not a reader. Now there is Audible. I don't even know how much it costs. It's probably cheap, but just, you can go to the library, you can get Libby, you can do it for free. there's so many ways you can, everybody has Cliff Notes now and YouTube audios. Like there's so many ways to read books. And my goal this year is to read 30. I feel like I'm only at 18. So I have some work to do, but I mean, I've got like relationship books, I have business books. I read Never Split the Difference every single year, and I have for probably 3 or 4 years. And then my broker here in Miami actually just interviewed him in Vegas when I saw you. So, you know, the guy's super interesting. He was an FBI hostage negotiator. Honestly, what got you here won't get you there, I think is what it's called. I've only read it once, but it really talks about the ego and how, and I found myself doing it like the day that I read this chapter. I had to have a call with Title, and they were like trying to explain something to me about something that, you know, if you've been in the business was so obvious. And I noticed I immediately shut her down. I was like, I already know that. What I need to know is, part of that's just my super dominant personality that I can't help. The other part of it is your ego. Like, I don't need you to explain this to me. And it's telling you the things that you do in order to what you think are bettering you are actually putting you back. So what, let me look it up because I do not want to.
Here's a couple books that I have where people are saying whatever. Okay, I'm going to go through mine. Winning, it's with the #1 by Tim Grover, both his books. Relentless. How the Mighty Fall is a good one. Living with a Sill is hysterical with Jesse Itzler. I don't have time to type it all out, so you're just gonna have to rewatch this. Okay. Who Not How. Everything is Fucked is okay. Mindset, 7 levels of communication, and then your next 5 moves, and obviously Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. But guys, I want you all to go rewatch this again. Okay. Think about how many times she says relationships and everything, how she starts, versus you listen to all these other speakers and they're about transactions and buy leads and cold calling. Think about it. How many of you guys been to events? Every time she starts something, her first word she says is what? Relationship. And I'm keen on that. She's like the woman version of me, just way better looking, because I would look like a burly woman. Okay. I'd be a huge woman. Okay. Some giant biceps. But if you look at what she's saying, and I think the book changes your brain. So sorry to interrupt, but I just thought that was a really powerful point, because you've said it at least 5 times so far, I would say, on this short 35-minute interview that we've been on. And I think a lot of us lose that. I think so many realtors are transactional, and the books, and then I want to talk about one last thing before we stop this, but I think this is pretty where we just talked about it. But talk about a little bit more books that you have.
Okay, we've got The Power of Moments. I read that when I hired my current assistant. I thought that was how to make everything super special. How can you make everything special in this transaction? That's a good one. Make time if you feel like you're losing time. It gives you 100 ways to get your time back. The Power of One More. Let's see, what else do we got? Oh, the 12-week year. I read it. I like it. I'm just starting to get into it. It breaks, instead of having a whole year, it's 4 quarters and each one is a year. So I've got it right here that I'm going to start. Surrounded by Idiots. I just finished that. How many times a day are you like, that person is a fucking idiot? And it's so true, because it's only because they don't think, speak, act, operate just like you, but it's like they're just a different version. Like they just do things differently, and it's okay. They don't have to be you, but we all think you're stupid if you're not me, right? So those are my favorite books right now.
So I had a great question. How do you surround yourself with the right people? Suggestions. Me, if I want to make a certain amount of money, I better have 4 of my 5 friends that make 3 times the amount of what I want to make. Because you'll never get there, because none of your friends know how to get there if they've never done it. Does that make sense? So if you guys want to make 500 grand, you need a couple friends that make millions.
Yeah.
You want to make 300 grand, you need 4 or 5 people that are millionaires. And a lot of people, I see you guys on your stories and who you're hanging out with, what you're doing. You're never going to change your circumstances. I did, because I changed my environment. You know, I've got one of my really good friends, Chad, he's down here. Flew in, he had a bachelor party, I picked him up and he stayed an extra day, and it just worked out. I had a bunch of shit I need to get done around the house, and now we're flying out here in a couple hours. But Lauren, I think this is really important. We talked about how And if you guys aren't aware, Century 21 and Coldwell Banker just lost a lawsuit for $83 million yesterday. And now it's coming with the other big ones, just so you know, because of misrepresentation by agents not knowing how to do their fucking job. And NAR just launched it to where, and you know this, Lauren, and we talked about it, to where you're not going to probably get the percentage anymore. You now have to go to your buyer or your seller and say, you're paying me 20 grand. And your immediately thing was going to go, the buyers are going to go around us as agents and go directly to the listing agent. How important is it right now to have an online brand, online value, online presence, mindset, systems, everything? How important do you think it is right now and crucial in our business right now? Because I think it's more than it's ever been on what I preach. How important do you think it is?
I think it's important to remember you don't just get a real estate license and make a ton of money. And that is what everybody thinks about real estate. And I will be the first to say real estate has broken up every single one of my romantic relationships since I've been in it. They hate how much I work, and it takes somebody super ambitious themselves who isn't interested in just being mediocre. And I got called out the other day by my boyfriend. He's like, you kind of waste your time on things that you don't really need to be doing. And I was like, what do you mean? So he explained that to me, and it was helpful because he sees me operate in a way that I don't see myself operate.
Love that.
And
Love that.
totally. So how to surround yourself with people. I will say I'm in the middle of trying to change that, because the people I gravitate to, I feel like I have something really important to learn from everyone. So it doesn't have, mine's not all about money. You know, like my broker here in Miami, it like runs in a totally different circle, and he sees value in me and is going to start bringing me into that circle. So he's like the money piece, right? He makes a lot of money and he's got a different world that I have. You know, my boyfriend is super ambitious. He's never going to settle. He's never going to be mediocre. My best girlfriends, they all bring something different to the table. Like some are like just bosses in their own industry. They're good with boundaries. Some are just super well-spoken and like kind of like there's just a piece of somebody that I surround myself with. So for me, it's not money, because that's not always the most important thing. It's just different characteristics of what I can pull from you. Like, I like that from you. Instead of being so harsh or hard, because I have a very blunt delivery, I can be not the nicest.
He's the woman version of me, guys. Have you not noticed that on this call?
It's awful.
So great. I love it. That makes me laugh so well.
And so I'm like, okay, like you just have something to learn from everybody, and it doesn't have to be a financial value. It can be a characteristic, a quality, it can be a habit, it can be anything. So you try to just find those people, and that's who I surround myself with, people who I still have something to learn from.
I love that. I mean, rethinking my answer, I think you taught me something. Money is everything, guys, because that's how you got to pay for shit. I would agree. I have my people that mentor me to help me with money. I have my people that bring me happiness. I have my people that bring me some chaos, because I know what it is, right? So you got to understand your people. And then I have my people where I'm flying to Utah, and it's my first event and trip in months where I'm not working. And I'm going home, and people say, why would you go home to Ogden, Utah? Another thing, because it brings me peace. And I need sometimes just to chill. And so people are like, what do you do? I'm like, I'm just going up there to chill. That's why when my buddy stayed, he switched a flight, and I said, hey, dude, if you could switch a flight, I'll pay for the difference. I need some shit done at my house. And that's what you do as a contractor. So we did my green screen. We swapped out a washing machine. We fixed a door. We did a couple other things. Got him a haircut. He was all, had a longer hair, and I had a mobile barber come get him a hair. So I did some things for him on the who, not how in a lesson, but I'm going home because I made a commitment that I have some really good friends, and one of them flies into town every year from Pennsylvania, and we're in our third year, and I missed him when I did my father's son trip. But he came in this week, and so I told him I'd fly back up, and he's like, really, you would? I said, yeah, I'm flying up specifically because I made a commitment, and we made a commitment years ago that we would see each other every year to hang out, because that's something that we can never get back. And I think a lot of times, and Lauren, I kind of want you to touch on this before we end. I think a lot of times, and I know you say you stopped or whatever it is, but we get caught up so much and forget to just stop and slow down a minute and chill. Like, I'm just going up there by myself to hang out. I'm not bringing my dad. I'm not, because, entertaining my dad's like entertaining a crazy chick, because you never know what the hell my dad's going to do at that day. It's funny that way. But what do you do for yourself that brings you peace? Or what activities do you do? Because me just flying home, going back to the same old bar that's like Cheers and playing golf and hanging out, just people are happy for me because I made it, and a lot of my friends, they're doing well. Like my buddy here, Chad, brings me peace. And that's important to me, because not every friend needs to just be somebody that's going to bust your balls. You need somebody that brings you peace and happiness and reminding you of where you started to where you are today. And I think your boyfriend does a really good balance on a lot of that. And I can see it because I'm excited. You're actually dating a guy that challenges you, which is happy for me. And I love that about that, because we've talked about that for now quite a while, that, that's the guy. So what brings you peace?
My mornings.
Okay. But if you had to go for 3 days and
Oh,
peace, and I think so many people are in relationships where their spouse won't allow them or whatever it is. And that's the wrong spouse. Because we as parents, as people, dude, we just need a fucking break.
yeah.
Like, I just want a break. I don't want to have to deal with anybody's shit for 3 days, 4 days. Like, I have 361 other days and I'm dealing with people's chaos. Give me 4.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't, when people ask what I do other than work, I always like get this look on my face. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, hobbies. Don't you have any hobbies? And no. So it makes me feel like I'm super uninteresting because I don't have any hobbies. So my
Yes,
time
you
in
do.
Miami is being spent, I'm obviously starting this business from a different place. Like I have funds, I have a whole knowledge base of 15 years behind me how to get this business off the ground. I want to go do things socially that fulfill my bucket, but also that get me out to be around people so I can meet people and get some business out of it. And so I'm trying to establish some sort of life in Miami that allows me to have hobbies. So maybe those are dancing lessons. Like I just took a windsurfing lesson that I really like. So I want to find a windsurfing club. And I was telling my best guy friend, and he was like, that is bougie as fuck, girl. I was like, perfect. Those are the people I need to be hanging out with. So like, I don't, what do I do for peace? Like yesterday, I got up and read my book for an hour and a half in the morning before I went to exercise, like that's kind of where I find it, because I have this, like, I call it electricity just running through my body right now, where I have a lot of things that I need to get done. And there's always a time, I personally believe, that your body will stop you when it's time to stop. Like if I
Yep.
won't stop myself, my body either gets sick, it shuts down, I get an injury, I can't exercise to give me more time. There's always some force that comes in and is like, you're done. So I'm working on finding that, to be honest. I don't have it right now, but I'm
But
working
here's
on
the
it.
thing, guys. If you notice, she's just vulnerable as shit on this thing and just really says it how it is, and nothing's perfect, but she's doing her best and doesn't quit. That's what I love about it. I think that's great. I think this is a really good question from Kim. I think this is a great question, actually.
Thank you.
What is
Okay,
the best way to get involved with bosses when you're not yet one without being completely inauthentic? So, my answer to that would be, you need to change your mindset right now, because if you go
bosses.
into a situation where you don't think you're good enough to be in that room, you're never going to be good enough to be in that room. I don't give a fuck what room it is. I'm going to own that bitch. Okay. So she's trying to think of, like, how do I get around a better court where I can bring, but you got to bring value. You got to have consistency. Um, it was just not talking about like all these past things that built my life, but what I used in my past life to fulfill where I am today. Like, that's some things that I do. The other thing too that my mentor said is, dude, you got to change your circle. So I wrote out a circle. Okay. I wrote down all the 7, 8 friends besides Brad and John that I hung out with, and I wrote down their incomes. And my mentor said, so how are you going to get to where you're going to be if they're not there yet? And it was a hard pill to swallow. And I got rid of 7 of them and kept 1.
Not easy changing your circle, because there's an emotional attachment, right? Whether it's, oh, we've been friends since kindergarten, or you just genuinely like them. Sometimes you just, again, it goes back to your distractions. You've got to put certain people on the back burner. I call it my top 3. I got my top 3 girlfriends. that I'll tell them anything and they're there for me. Again, that's not about money. That's like my personal well-being that needs them. As far as, it's like, I've been researching, like, where do the billionaires hang out in Miami? That's not really something that's Googleable, but I'm been going to like more expensive restaurants and I sit at the bar and I talk to people. I've been going to like events that cost money to get in, not free events, like little shit like that. And a client once told me, he was on $1 million listing, and he was telling me, he was like, Lauren, he's like, you got to walk in and have the biggest dick in the room. And I was like, I think I already do that. Like, I can't even help it. Like, that's just who I am. Like, I really do think that. And, but not in a cocky way. That's just my personality. That's just, I'm very dominant. So I just come out of the gate like that. And, so that is one way, is like, you just have to, but you can't come across as inauthentic. It can't come across as like you're a know-it-all or you're better than them. It's just like who you are in yourself. Like, you know who you are. Like, I know that I always have to be presentable when I leave the house. Like, nothing can shake that, even when I go to the gym, I'm still cute, like, that's just like a non-negotiable for me. So knowing who you are through and through also helps have your big dick in the room. When people talk
Look,
to you.
guys, you're getting it the same way as from a woman's version of me or whatever. And I ain't got to say it because this has been like probably one of the best interviews I've had. Because she says all the same things that I've done. She's successful. Look, she's smiling. She's happy. Her cat Fluffy wants to get on the call. She's not worried about what anybody thinks. She's trying to create opportunities by going into different rooms, taking initiative, but she's investing into herself. She knows that things are going to cost more to get there, right? I think there's too many people in the world that think they're going to become millionaires by living on a bush light budget, right? Like, I want to do all this thing. And I love you all. And I see some of the things you do. And Kim probably had one of the best questions. And for a lot of you guys, stop doing stupid shit that you think that you're fucking cool in. Like, no one cares if no one's like, if you're doing an event and you might have a second job or whatever it is. I had 3 jobs when I opened, okay? And you post more about that job or more about that event than actually doing the job that makes you money, you are a dipshit. If you're hanging out with other realtors and you're tagging them in your shit, you're going to lose money. Lauren doesn't do that. She used to. She don't do that anymore.
I just did it today because it was my best friend.
There's a
That's
difference.
the first time I have done that in years, but I totally agree. And it's the easiest to gravitate towards real estate agents because that's who we hang out with. We have the most in common with them. They understand, like, we can talk about things and laugh. Whereas like when you tell your spouse or some, like a friend, they're like, okay, like I've been working with my sister and her wife for buying a house, and they're like, holy shit, I don't know how you do this job. It is so fucking hard. They're like, I have a whole new respect for you because they're seeing the inside of the business, not just the Instagram version.
Right.
It is not easy. It's not easy. It takes a lot. You have to wear a lot of hats. You have to be the janitor, you have to be the CEO, and you have to be everything in between. And that's where your ego gets checked. Like, okay, like, I don't care if you have to make like admin@laurenmhouse.com and it's you emailing that person, at least so you look like you have an assistant. I don't care who's behind the computer. Like, you do what you have to do to make yourself look better and do free stuff. That's why social media is so great, I mean, I know you're supposed to kind of like consume content that other agents put out. I really try hard not to follow a lot of agents because, John talks about all the time. Then all of a sudden, you want to support your friends. And then all of a sudden your feed is just people that you not going to send you business because you're my competitor. So then I have to go through and I like send them a text. I'm like, I'm so sorry, but I'm deleting you. So I delete them. And then if I see something, when I see them in person, or I check again, put them on my calendar once a month, like, hey, how are you? What's it? So I keep in touch with them a different way. It's just, this job is just endless.
Here's the best thing that I'm going to take. And I do this all the time when I talk about personal goals, business goals. We have daily, weekly, and monthly, right? Here's what I would challenge everybody on a call. I want you guys to write yourself 3 letters. I want you to write yourself a letter because that was probably the best thing that I've ever heard. By means, I mean, I write down stuff all the time. Write yourself a letter on who you are today and what do you love about yourself, and just end it at that. And then write yourself a letter about where you want to see yourself in 120 days. And then write yourself another letter of why you can't overcome your bullshit. Okay. And I want you to mail them to yourself. I want you to open up the first letter when it first comes in the mail. And I want you to frame it, and I want it to put somewhere where you can put it in where so you can remind yourself why you like yourself. And then in the 120 days, I want you to open that up in the calendar and set it for 120 days and read it if you actually fulfilled your bullshit because you wrote yourself a letter. And then a week later, I want you to read the other one and just talk about like, why aren't and you know, for the people that I talked about the other day when I said they can be a realtor, like I don't understand as a parent, okay, for me, and I'm not like the perfect person in the world by any means, but I am one fantastic fucking father. And I will never, no one will ever take that one away from me because I'm teaching my kids a skill set that most parents don't teach their kids because they lead by example. My kids are fucking badasses for a reason. I brought my son to an event the other day with 40 people in the room. He held my hand as I gave my speech and then went and sat down and behaved himself at 4 years old. Sat there polite, just did his iPad, didn't make a peep, and people were shocked. And I said, you know why? Because I don't raise my kids to be assholes. I raised them with structure. He knew exactly how he could handle the room because I've given him a stage presence. He's done all the things that he needs to do. I learned so much from Lauren today that I'm going to implement into my stuff where I'm going to write myself letters and do things and be a little bit more on some things. And we get along so well in those aspects, but I can't, that was like, and you know, her relationship stuff about everything, but that is, I think if you guys wrote yourself more letters and read them to yourself and just mailed them there and held them there, I think, God, that's probably the best thing I've ever heard in my career. And I've never heard it before until today. I think if you're on a struggle, write yourself a letter if you're in a struggle, open it in the mail because it takes 3 to 5 days or wait a week and be like, and read it. Because I think a lot of times we bring the past into the future. Okay, I think this is the greatest learning lesson I've ever had in my life. And really read it and be like, is what happened to me 5 days ago still here today? And you're going to learn to stop giving so much stuff that's never going to matter your energy. You're going to, like, I can tell you when I was in relationships, I'd post relationship quotes about whatever it is. If you post about narcissistic or relationship shit and you've had a bad relationship, that motherfucker's still winning today. If you post about a bad client or a bad situation or what you haven't done and you're bringing it in today, that is still winning today. When I flew to Utah to talk to my stepdad that beat me up and just got on a plane to forgive him, I ended that day, but it took me 13 years. And I learned that day, I don't bring anything into today. That happened yesterday. I was talking about Lauren about how like I couldn't get my bank account, whatever it is. And I'm like, I had 27 grand just floating around that I had like transferred into something. People are like, oh, we had 27 grand. I wasn't worried about it because I was like, God, if I lost 27 grand, guess what? I know I can make another 27 grand because I had done it before. We worry about too many things that we can't control versus worrying about the stuff that we can control. And that was my biggest takeaway from Lauren. She is in control of the things that she can control and doesn't care about all the other extra narratives. And I learned so much on this. I mean, I normally at the end of these calls don't do this, but it was thank you, because I always thought about that, whatever it is. And I really look at it today and I'm going up to where I'm going in Utah for peace. That's it. And I am so excited about that. And I thank you for that, guy, Lauren. Thank you so much for this. I would wish people would watch this over and over and over because the writing the letter, you always talk about relationships and business, but you talked a lot about your ups and downs, dude. And I think we all have ups and downs, and probably one of the most vulnerable things that I've had on this conversation of where it is. And I think people struggle. And I literally can't thank you enough for taking time to be on this call. I think it helped. I can tell, I already know it helped a lot of people realize that we can be better, right? And there's a lot of things that we can build together. And that's why I built this company, is because so we could build together and win together, right? I think a lot of times we don't. So thank you again, guys. We're over the hour. I've got to get on another call. She's just so amazing. You guys have all the talent. Lauren, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you being here and listening. I hope you picked something up. Feel free to contact me. If you guys have questions about anything, I have a whole lot of knowledge and experience to share.
And I think we might have to do a little follow-up, little like mastermind with Lauren again, and kind of see where we're at with the letters in 120 days from now and how it really changed people.
Add it to the calendar.
I would love it. Let's do that. Okay, guys. Thank you so much. I love
Thank you,
you all.
guys.
Have a great day. And I appreciate Lauren. Once again, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank
Enjoy.
you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Care.